Hello there, everyone, and welcome to TVS Nightline. Here with me, Shao Traminato, and as always, thank you for tuning in to your local news tonight. Now on to the headlines. Now, top headline story as the people are urged to brace yourself amid the continuous downpour with the tendency of flash floods hitting several districts in the state, following the unexpected weather during this wet season.
Last night, the continuous downpour have caused flash floods in Batu Kitang, coupled with the rising water level of the river. As of noon, drizzling rainfall were experienced with water trends showing receding.
Air naik di kawasan ini, dia naik perlahan-lahan. Sebab sungai Sarawak kiri, apabila dia penuh, air yang mengalir pertama kali, air yang dari sebelah hilir akan naik ke atas juga. Bila air ini bertembung, ia akan melimpah ke seluruh bahagian dalam kampung ini. Bahagian-bahagian yang rendah. Setakat ini, Alhamdulillah, kalau harap-harap tidak hujan sebelah hulu, ia nampak semakin surut.
Nang sari hujan kemarin. Daripada kata orang pukul 7 pagi ke 6 pagi ke, dari malam ke sampai ke petangnya. Nang si berhenti-henti hujan. Dan buat masa tu, buat jam tu, ada tempatnya sudah air dah turun, dah surut. Buat masa tu lah. Kemungkinan kita harap-harap hujan tu si berterusan, harap-harap petang tu air akan terus surut dah, terus si ada banjir lagi lah.
Meanwhile, Sarawak Fire and Rescue Department Zone 1 Chief Yusri Basri said the department are prepared for any possibility of floods in low-lying regions and coastal areas. He also advised the public to be vigilant during this rainy season.
Iaitu musim yang memang kita akan hadapi tiap-tiap tahun, di mana kita punya persiapan dari segi keanggotaan dan juga peralatan sememangnya telah disiap sedia lah untuk menghadapi musim banjir. Di samping kita bersedia 24/7 untuk menerima panggilan-panggilan kecemasan, terutamanya panggilan banjir.
If the flood situation prolonged, Yusri said appropriate measures would be executed, such as evacuating flood victims to the flood relief centres.
Sekiranya isu banjir berlarutan, sememangnya jabatan telah bersiap sedia dari segi kelengkapan dan juga keanggotaan untuk memindahkan penduduk ataupun masyarakat.
Following the flood situation, our reporter is on the ground in a few flooded areas of Kuching, expected to persist until January 14th. Maria Suji has the report.
Saya kini berada di Taman Malehah Kuching di lorong 11A. Dan seperti yang anda lihat ketika ini, banjir masih di paras yang tinggi dan dijangka hujan akan berterusan sehingga esok. Berdasarkan dengan tinjauan Maria bersama dengan kru-kru, iaitu 50 keluarga melibatkan 186 orang telah pun ditempatkan di Dewan Serbaguna Malehah dan masih juga tidak mencukupi, dan mereka telah pun menyediakan satu lagi tempat pemindahan untuk mangsa banjir di SJK Chenghua Sungai Tengah. Jadi sekian itu saja laporan saya, Maria Suji, bersama dengan juru kamera iaitu Gusti Norambia untuk laporan TVS.
According to Tupong Assemblyman Fazruddin Abdul Rahman, the multi-purpose hall in Taman Malehah and SJK Chenghua Sungai Tengah will become flood evacuation centres to shelter flood victims temporarily.
Saya difahamkan pagi tadi sidap pegawai bomba dah datang untuk menasihat ketua masyarakat kita, dan kita sentiasa announce menggunakan PA system, remind sidap mangsa-mangsa kita tu untuk patuh kepada SOP.
The Fire and Rescue Department also provided 4 mobile toilets and adequate facilities for the flood victims. Meanwhile, one of the residents in Taman Malehah, Asparelawati, has decided to remain in her own house despite the heavy downpour and flood in order to deter any possible burglaries. According to her, some might take advantage during the flood situation.
Orang tua ajak kami orang hantar ke rumah kakak ke ataupun rumah kami orang di Impun lah. Jadi kami orang ajak stay di situ lah sampai malam lah, sampai airnya surut.
Now, at least 517 people from 170 families who were affected by the flood have been evacuated to a temporary evacuation center.
According to Sarawak State Disaster Management Committee Secretary, there are 9 flood evacuation centre or PPS comprising of 6 in Kuching, 2 in Miri and 1 in Serian. In Kuching, evacuation centres are located at Taman Desa Wira Community Hall, Sekolah Kebangsaan Matu Baru, Taman Maleha Multipurpose Hall, Sungai Tengah SJK Chunghua National Type Primary School and Stapok Community Hall. Meanwhile, in Miri, evacuation centres are open at Kampong Batu 1 Community Hall and Surau Darul Iman Tudan Phase 2. In Serian, the evacuation centre is open at the Village Hall of Kampong Betong, Kanawit.
Now, meanwhile, 6 families from Kampong Betong, Kanawit, Serian have been evacuated to a temporary flood evacuation centre. According to the village chief Bujang Domong, the evacuation involved a total of 23 victims from these 6 families.
Dan daripada 6 buah rumah tu yang pindah, seramai 23 orang warga yang telah berpindah kepada di tempat Dewan Masyarakat Kampung Betong dengan jumlah 11 lelaki, 11 dewasa lah, lelaki dan perempuan dewasa dan seorang bayi yang berumur 8 bulan lah.
Despite being faced with the challenges of COVID-19, the centre will continue to adhere to the stipulated standard operating procedures. The flood victims receive aid from the Social Welfare Department and other relevant agencies. Meanwhile, one of the flood victims have resigned to the situation wholeheartedly amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
Kebiasaan ya, tahun udah kami banjir aja, tahun tu medugaan kami semua, dah kekubiyat.
Tak kala kita berhadapan dengan cabaran pandemik COVID-19, kita juga berhadapan dengan keadaan cuaca yang tidak menentu ini seperti banjir dan hujan yang lebat. Di mana ketika ini saya berada di sebuah perkampungan iaitu di Betong Kanawit yang membabitkan 6 buah rumah dan 6 buah keluarga. Rumah mereka dinaiki air dan 24 mangsa telah dipindahkan di pusat pemindahan sementara di mana di situ mereka mendapatkan bantuan yang sewajarnya. Dan kepada anda di luar sana, teruskan kesetiaan anda bersama kami. Saya Lukman Muhammad bersama juru kamera Awang Azmil. Salam hormat.
Now, at the same time, in Batu Kitang, water levels have shown a receding trend at noon. However, do not get complacent as preparations to face the flood must be taken.
Air naik di kawasan ini, dia naik perlahan-lahan. Sebab sungai Sarawak kiri, apabila dia penuh, air yang mengalir pertama kali, air yang dari sebelah hilir akan naik ke atas juga. Bila air ini bertembung, ia akan melimpah ke seluruh bahagian dalam kampung ini. Bahagian-bahagian yang rendah. Setakat ini, Alhamdulillah, kalau harap-harap tidak hujan sebelah hulu, ia nampak semakin surut.
Hujan marik memang nang sari hujan marik. Daripada kata orang pukul 7 pagi ke 6 pagi ke, dari malam ke sampai ke petangnya. Nang si berhenti hujan. Dan buat masa tu, buat jam tu, ada tempatnya udah air dah turun, dah surut. Buat masa tu lah. Kemungkinan kita harap-harap hujan tu si berterusan, harap-harap petang tu air akan terus surut dah, terus si ada banjir lagi lah.
If the situation worsens, the Sarawak Fire and Rescue Department is on standby mode and will deploy a team of personnel to be dispatched to the scene. According to the Sarawak Zone 1 Fire and Rescue Department Chief Yusri Basri, the public is advised to be always vigilant.
Sekiranya isu banjir berlarutan, sememangnya jabatan telah bersiap sedia dari segi kelengkapan dan juga keanggotaan untuk memindahkan penduduk ataupun masyarakat.
Batu Kitang Assemblyman Loh Ker Chiang also assured that assistance will be provided for flood victims.
So while we want to make our people want to provide a conducive and
and a safe environment for our people. I would also like to advise our people to consider
Orang ramai diingatkan amal 3L, tidak lalai, leka dan lupa. Musim hujan dijangka akan berterusan hingga pertengahan Februari. Pihak bomba telah melakukan persediaan awal bagi meninjau dan mereka bersedia untuk membantu orang awam yang akan terjejas pada musim hujan ini. Kemungkinan banjir akan berlaku. Sekiranya air pasang di kawasan anda, jangan tunggu lagi. Segera hubungi pihak bomba untuk bantuan segera. Ruben Gomez, terima kasih.
Now, aside from flood, the incessantly heavy rainfall had also triggered landslides in a few areas.
One of them is located at a slope around 80 meters from SMK Kuching Secondary School. However, the Fire and Rescue Department, through its monitoring, revealed that the slope is safe and that there were no follow-up slides. Meanwhile, in Kampong Gresik, heavy rainfall has also caused a landslide in the area, causing a four-wheel drive to plunge to a ravine.
Jadi, kita dapati sebuah kenderaan pacuan 4 roda, RAV4, telah jatuh ke kawasan tersebut, yang mana kejadian ini berlaku pada jam sekitar 1:30 malam tadi.
Fortunately, there were no casualties resulting from the accident.
Saya dimaklumkan oleh bapa si mangsa ketika anaknya pulang daripada makan dan terkandas di bahagian tu, dan sebelum tanah yang runtuh, kereta yang terbelit sisanya sempat keluar. Daripada kereta seramai 4 orang. 4 orang. Jadi alhamdulillah yalah tidak ada kemalangan jiwa yang berlaku.
Now, meanwhile, 2 road repair projects involving roads at Kampong Rayang and Rituk Road, Labuan, will significantly benefit the residents in the area starting March 2021. Now, according to Assistant Minister of Agriculture, Native Land, Regional Development, Dato' Roland Sagahwien, the repair work signifies the state government's concern for the people under the leadership of Gabungan Party Sarawak.
Anyway, yang kita harus berterima kasih adalah kepada Kerajaan Negeri Sarawak. Tetapi bukannya sebarang Kerajaan Negeri Sarawak, tetapi Kerajaan TVS.
Both projects are at 50% completion with a total budget allocation of 382,817 ringgit through Malaysia's Road Record Information System for the year 2020.
Now, the king tide phenomenon, coupled with incessant heavy rainfall, has forced the management of Sarawak River Barrage to release water downstream into the sea as of 6 p.m. today.
According to TVS observation, river and seawater levels are almost at 10.5 meters before the water barrier was opened to redirect the excess flow of water to the sea.
Payung tak ada tu. Tak ada payung ah. Pakai plastik tutup kepala. Aku demam. Pakai kursi roda dia bawa nenek dia.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome back. Now, on to some COVID-19 news as 2,985 new positive COVID-19 cases were recorded nationwide on Wednesday. This brings the total number of infections in the country to 144,518 cases.
According to Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah, 2 of the reported daily cases were imported, while the rest were local transmissions. Meanwhile, Sarawak recorded 166 new positive COVID-19 cases, the highest in the state so far. 94 cases were recorded in Cebu, 48 in Miri, 15 in Kuching, 4 in Buluru, 3 in Bintulu, 1 in Belaga, and 1 in Samarahan. This brings the cumulative positive cases in Sarawak to 1,740 cases.
Now, the Sarawak State Health Department will up the capacity of wards in Cebu Hospital in order to house the increasing number of COVID-19 patients. According to Sarawak Health Director Dr. Chin Sin Hing, his team will also utilize the Belia Kemuyang camp in Cebu as a quarantine and low-risk cases treatment center.
Previously, Cebu City Council Chairman Clarence Ting informed that Cebu Hospital is now facing a shortage of wards to house COVID-19 patients, aside from considering other locations. The State Health Department also plans to open more quarantine centers and low-risk cases treatment centers for COVID-19 patients. Dr. Chin also reminded the public who had close contacts with COVID-19 patients to undergo screenings. Seeing as how Cebu is now categorized as a red zone and subject to a conditional movement control order, he urged everyone to adhere to the stipulated standard operating procedures.
Now, meanwhile, the COVID-19 drive-through screening in Cebu is first of its kind in Sarawak. Now, this is to accommodate the operations of the 3 existing screening centers.
Located at Sarawak State Library in Cebu, the center operates from Monday to Saturday at 8 in the morning until 4 in the evening, with no charges imposed. According to Sarawak Assistant Minister of Housing and Public Health Dr. Anwar Rapai, advance bookings are not required and the public can show up anytime to undergo screening. The 3 existing screening centers, which are Lanang Health Clinic, Cebu Jaya Health Clinic, and Cebu Indoor Stadium, have been open since January 10. The costs for screening in all 4 centers are fully borne by the state government. So far, around 4,000 individuals have undergone COVID-19 screening in all 3 centers. On Tuesday, Cebu recorded the highest number of daily positive COVID-19 cases in Sarawak with 92 cases, followed by 20 cases in Sebau, 12 in Kanawit, 11 in Miri, 3 in Beluru, 3 in Kuching, 2 in Dalat, 1 in Sarato, 1 in Bintulu, and 1 in Limbang.
Following the next news, as 8 public places in Muka and Dalat districts have been closed off from sports and recreational activities for the meantime. Now these areas are Tapak Kaul Muka, Kaladana Playground, Perhin Setia Raja Square, Setia Raja Boulevard Park, and Perhin Square Playground in Muka. While for Dalat District, Kalidang Park, Dalat Solidarity Park, and Dalat Waterfront have been closed.
Dalat and Muka District Council in a statement said the public are barred from visiting or gathering in the named areas in order to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. The notices of temporary closures in these areas are stipulated under the supervision of the Council during the Recovery Movement Control Order as announced by the State Disaster Management Committee on Monday. The date of opening these public places will be announced soon, subject to the current situation. The statement also said the authorities will closely monitor the situation in these areas from time to time to ensure that the compliance is met and that anyone found violating these orders will be taken action against. The community is advised to follow the directive, including practicing the new norm for collective well-being, especially in the safety public health aspect.
Now, meanwhile, as we anticipate the new celebration this year, the Sarawak Disaster Management Committee, or SDMC, has announced the decision to limit the Chinese New Year celebration to only the first day in light of the worsening COVID-19 situation. Now, visits are limited to only immediate family members and a maximum of 20 people at any one time.
This year, Chinese New Year celebration will be celebrated on February 12 and 13 this year. Sarawak Federation of Chinese Association President Dato' Richard Wee said as the COVID-19 situation is still serious, the community would need to cooperate with the government in fighting this pandemic together.
I think it is also part and parcel of our duty to ensure that we are able, with this kind of cooperation, we will be able to assist the government in trying to control the pandemic situation.
Commenting further, Kuching Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry President Dato' Tan Jit Ki also shares the same view in curbing the spread of COVID-19. The move to limit the number of visitors is a good preemptive measure.
I think even though 20% together, it is also need to keep social distance and wearing masks so that we can help to control the COVID as fast as possible to reduce the COVID to the minimum.
At the same time, the Sarawak United People's Party annual Chinese New Year open house will not be held this year.
So for this year, there will be no Chinese New Year gathering for SUPP on the first day of Chinese New Year. And as for they have an online Chinese New Year celebration and gathering. So far, we have not planned for.
Now, plans and programs to assist entrepreneurs in these trying times will not be derailed amid the imposition of the Movement Control Order, or MCO. Now, this was assured by Minister of Entrepreneur Development and Cooperatives, Dato' Seri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar.
Citing the execution of the second phase of the Entrepreneur and Cooperative Recovery Plan under the Ministry of Entrepreneur Development and Cooperatives, the recovery plan includes the e-commerce onboarding coaching program, technopreneurship for young graduates, I 4.0 accelerator program, adoption of digital solution, and the recovery initiatives for social enterprise. Wan Junaidi said training and entrepreneurial development programs will be carried out virtually by agencies under MEDAC, such as the National Entrepreneurship Institute SME Bank, as well as Cooperative Institute of Malaysia. Meanwhile, financing programs by agencies such as SME Bank, Bank Rakyat and Tekun will continue as usual.
Now, a good news as the Finance Ministry will expedite the Bantuan Prihatin Nasional or BPN Phase 2 payments totaling 2.38 billion ringgit to the 11.6 million eligible recipients starting January 21st.
According to the Minister of Finance, Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz, to date, 7.18 billion ringgit had been paid or allocated to the 11.06 million BPN 2.0 recipients, comprising 5.82 million unmarried individuals and 5.24 million household receivers. He also said the payment for the B40 and M40 groups would be credited directly into their bank accounts starting January 21 and January 25 respectively. Those without bank accounts would be able to receive payment at Bank Simpanan National branches from January 25th onwards, subject to the bank's standard operating procedures guideline. Meanwhile, for recipients in Sabah and Sarawak who do not have a bank account, payment will be made from early February to April 1st at locations to be announced at the end of this month. Approvals can be checked starting January 15 at the official BPN portal bpn.hasil.gov.my.
Now, I want to go home. Those were the words often said by the crocodile victim at Maranat River on Tuesday. The victim's mother, Ute Nan, said her late son, AZHAR, showed significant changes since last week prior to his death.
Hanya nak pulang. Kami madahnya nak pulang sini, sedangkan rumah kita ampun ada di laut. Kami nak pulang. Ni nang pelik-pelik nak di kakaknya dengan kami. Kan saya hari seminggu sebelum dia ajak kami pergi ke kawasan non semata-mata dengannya makan.
While the victim's father, AZHAR RAZALI, recalled the attack of the 3-ton crocodile on his son, saying it all happened in the blink of an eye.
Narik empang sebelum kejadian lah, narik empang agak-agak dalam masa sejam lah. Empang yang ditariknya dalam tarik setengah kerja lah. Jadi setengah kerjanya tiba-tiba tang ada ya buaya yang nyambar daripada air menuju ke dalam bot dengan anak saya. Ya, terus tenggelam lah dalam masa dalam 2-3 saat saja lah.
The victim's wife, Manisa Musa, ponders upon their 3 children after the tragic loss of her husband, the head of their household.
Saya dapat nak berbayangkanlah macam ni. Kami terus ingat anak. Ingat anak teruslah. Macam ni keadaan lagi. Jemput di sini si dapat nak. Kita cerita macam ni keadaannya. Kami belum tahu macam ni sebenarnya cerita. Kami cuma ada duduk kadang fikir. Macam aja lah macam aja kami. Si dapat nak madah macam ni kita.
Saya sempat bersama pasukan bomba bagi melakukan operasi mencari dan menyelamat mangsa, di mana mangsa dipercayai telah disambar buaya ketika menarik pukat bersama bapaknya pada pukul 3.30 pagi. Walau apapun, saya doakan agar mangsa dijumpai walau apapun keadaan beliau. Saya Konigres bersama juru kamera Fikri Razak. Salam hormat.
Now, Dayang Rosnah Abang Madali, 19, the mother of Senior Minister of Works, Datuk Seri Fadila Yusof, passed away today at 6:30 p.m. at her home in PJ Heights, Putrajaya. She was believed to have died of old age. Meanwhile, the funeral prayers would be performed at the Ikhwanul Islam Mosque, Taman Sukma, at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow, and her remains would be buried at Semarang Muslim Cemetery, Putrajaya. And that concludes TVS Nightline for tonight. Here with me, Cheryl Shamina. And as always, thank you for joining me tonight as we battle the COVID-19 pandemic. Please stay safe, stay at home.